What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Dedrian Cologne, host of City of Wrestling Showtime. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that way you're notified when the City of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian Cologne, on every social media platform. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter X. Trying to think of another platform that I'm on. Who cares? But man, let's get into this. I am going to be reviewing the January 31st episode of AEW Dynamite. Man, this episode was pretty interesting. There was a solid beginning, a solid end, and somewhere in between, there was just like this or something like that. But overall, there was a lot of things that happened on this show that make you think, make you wonder. Not in a negative way, but in a good way. Makes you just like, where is this going? But overall, man, I really enjoyed this show. Had fun. It was, if you guys know my criteria as far as wrestling shows, it was a decent form of escapism, as far as entertainment, where I didn't feel like, oh man, this is boring. Oh, this is stupid. Well, maybe there was a one. I'll get into that, but overall, this was a decent show for AEW Dynamite. Not to the standard of Dynamites that usually are just like, yo, this was insane. This happened. This happened. This was more of a milder version of that, but it did progress a lot of storylines heading towards AEW Revolution. I'm really digging the Matthew and Nicholas Jackson EVPs that they're portraying on TV. Me personally, I believe that's like a long time coming. Should have probably done this. Well, then again, maybe they shouldn't have done it a few years ago because, you guys know what I'm referring to. But I like it. It's leaning into something that's pretty cool. Kind of wish Kenny Omega wasn't sick. Hope he's getting well and his health is recuperating from diverticulitis and everything. But it would be cool if he wasn't under that and was on TV and just that dynamic and everything. But man, this is pretty cool. But man, this, like I said, this episode, if you haven't watched it, I recommend it. Some people may say, "Oh, go to YouTube." No, watch this episode. You'll see a lot of cool things happen. Toni Storm, out of the park. Deonna Purrazzo, she's doing a tremendous job since she's arrived in AEW. But man, let's get into the things that stood out to me from this episode of AEW Dynamite, and a few things that were newsworthy items surrounding AEW this day. So first off, you had the Moxley Jeff Hardy feud. Well, let me phrase that, not feud, but match. For me, when the match came out, I was like, all right, cool, you're going to get Mox, Jeff Hardy. And in the back of my head, I'm like, man, is Jeff Hardy going to like do what he's been doing the past few weeks where he doesn't shake the person's hand and walks away and that whole thing? I can't remember if Matt Hardy was at ringside. I don't recall because at the end of the match, he wasn't there. And of course, Jon Moxley would. This was a pretty decent match. You can tell that with Jeff Hardy, like the 20 plus years of wrestling are somewhat catching up. So it's just like, man, like this is my guy. I remember watching him, when I was a teenager, coming up, and it's just like, man, like, it's just one of those bitter things. But in spite of that, this was a very fun match. Of course, in the end, Jeff Hardy didn't shake his hand. But an interesting thing occurred during this match. You had several CMLL luchadors at ringside. Forgive me, I didn't get their names before I did this recording. But there was 3 or 4 guys that were at ringside. And it was like, ooh, okay, this is interesting. Like, all right, I like this. Me personally, I'm a big fan of CMLL, going back to the early 90s when their program here in Chicago was airing on, I know if those of you who are from Chicago, you're probably going to get this, Channel 44. I believe that was Telemundo or Galavision at the time. But it would air an hour before WCW Saturday night. So if you were a big wrestling fan, you were practically watching 3 hours of wrestling. Then added on if there was a Saturday night's main event, so you were actually watching 5 hours of wrestling, from 4 till like 11 or something like that. But yeah, the CMLL thing looks pretty promising. So they're at ringside. Moxley shoves them, and it's like, okay, we're gonna get something, during the match or something like that. That doesn't happen. But after the match, Moxley, attempts to shake Jeff Hardy's hand. He gives him the forearm bird, not the finger bird, but the forearm bird, and he walks away. And then the guys from CMLL, they jump over and they get in the ring and they just beat down Mox, and several AEW wrestlers come out, and the CMLL guys leave. And of course, we're going to get a match this Saturday. Was it Saturday? No, Rampage. We're going to get a luchador match between the Blackpool Combat Club and the CMLL luchador. So that should be interesting. I'm really intrigued to see where this goes with CMLL. Are we going to get a third addition to the Forbidden Door? That should be pretty cool. Yeah, I like this. I like where this is going, where this could be headed. It's fun. For me, I like the CMLL colors. If you've watched if you follow them on Instagram or their social media, like the arenas that they're in are so vibrant and just energetic, and man, it's just the presentation is just off the charts. I really love that. So I mean, let's see where this goes and have fun with it. I know this Saturday, what Bryan Danielson will be wrestling Hirochi, I believe that's how you pronounce it, and he is labeled one of the best technical wrestlers in the world. I saw a few highlights of him. I recommend you guys watch that match when it airs on Saturday for Collision. Bryan Danielson, Hirochi. That looks like it's gonna be a fun match. There was a few moves that I seen Hirochi on his highlights. I was like, whoa! I'm like, man, can him and Bryan Danielson like execute that? I'm like, I'm gonna watch this match. So I recommend that. And forgive me, guys, if you watch this and I mispronounce his name. Forgive me. My apologies. But yeah, this is gonna be interesting where this goes. And also, that's not to factor in the luchadores, the women wrestlers. Case in point, Stephanie Vasquer, who faced Mercedes Moné at, oh my God, was it the Battle in the Valley last year where Mercedes got injured? I believe it was Battle of the Valley, but it was a New Japan event with CMLL, and that was a fantastic match. So you have the incorporation of the luchadores and possibly in AEW. We'll see where that goes. But then we get, during this match, it was so subtle. Lower third graphic. They usually hype up the matches next week and Rampage and everything. What do we get? We get this lower third that says Tony Khan has a big announcement next week. What that means, what that entails, we don't know. Now, for me, I do believe this is adding to the speculation from various reputable media sources that have reported and stated that, hey, Mercedes Moné is headed there soon. See if that's the case. Of course, we have this, the other free agent, Okada. Does that entail him? Or does it entail both? Does it entail the Dynamite after Revolution? Is Dynamite going to be in Boston? That's something to think about. It's very intriguing. When this initial announcement showed up on the lower third graphic, I was like, okay, big announcement. All right, this is going to be something cool. And of course, with Tony Khan's announcements, they're in layers. There's important announcement. There is, oh my God, Joe Pearl from Fightful put it down. But there's important announcement, big announcement, um, it's layers. So it isn't like, oh my God, an important announcement isn't a huge announcement. Usually a huge announcement entails a wrestler or um, a venue. So that's what it entails. And then everything else is just, hey, um, what the, a new show or something like that. That's an important announcement or a date or stuff like that. So there's layers to this. And then throughout the show, commentary started really emphasizing the big announcement. They really started, as the show was going on towards the end, like they really started mentioning, hey, Tony Khan's got a big announcement. So it was like they subtly mentioned it in the first match. And then as the show went on, they just kept on, that big announcement. We got that big announcement. We got that big announcement. So they kept on doing this like, okay, that's pretty cool. Then, of course, you had, I want to say, one of the best sit down interviews. And the reason why I say that, and actually, the last, man, I want to say the last 2 months, 2.5 months that AEW has been doing these sit down interviews, they have been really good. They have been really good. That's something that I can honestly say, with all the changes that AEW has had, and with all the, granted, AEW is not exempt for criticism or anything like that, or they should tweet this or they should tweet that. But with everything that they've done and criticism and everything, that's the one aspect of AEW that hasn't dropped. It's just the trajectory has just gone up ever since their inception. Those sit down interviews have gone up. It's like, man, this is pretty good. So you get Tony Schiavone with Darby Allin and Sting, and then you have Ricky Starks and Big Bill on one side. Ricky Starks mentions, hey, I have a grudge against you. And this was so good because, you didn't anticipate Ricky Starks to just fire off everything. You expect him to be cocky and just like, dismissive. But then he was just like very agitated and angry. It's like, man, why is he like that? And then he mentions Sting's first win was against Ricky Starks at, was it Revolution? Where they had the, oh my God, I can't remember. Forgive me, guys. But it was his first match. And it was like, oh. And they showed the graphic, they showed the video and everything. It was like, oh, damn, I forgot about that match. And that, man, that's something I really like. And I'm digging AEW doing that more, where it's like, oh, I remember that. So then you have Darby Allin. He tells Ricky Starks you don't respect him or his legacy or anything like that. And then Ricky Starks is like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to do what I can to retain the tag titles. And then he looks at Sting and he's like, you know what? I'm going to get my lick back on you. I have no respect for you. And then Sting's like, only one of you had, like, so he looks at Ricky Starks like, you're the only one that had balls to get in my face. And then he looks at Big Bill and he's like, I faced big men like you. The difference between them, they were killers. I'm not sure about you. And it's like, ooh. And mind you, when he mentions the big men he faced, Vader, Sid Vicious, you could say Hogan, Hall, Nash, Bam Bam Bigelow, who else? Lex Luger, Barry Windham. He's faced the Road Warriors. He's faced the Steiners, the Great Muta. I'm trying to just go through the list of guys he's gone through in WCW. Macho Man Randy Savage. You could put Booker T up there. Goldberg. There you go. Scott Steiner. I just mentioned him. So you have those guys, and then TNA, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles. He's gone through those guys. So it's like, ooh, that's a pretty big dig. And before this interview gets, concludes and everything, Ricky Starks and Darby Allin, they're about to go to blows. They're about to punch each other. And Sting like, hey, easy, easy, easy. And he's like, the only thing I've hated is talk. I'll see you next week. So, of course, that's next week. Sting and Darby Allin versus Ricky Starks and Big Bill for the AEW Tag Team titles. I believe Sting and Darby Allin will drop those titles. I do feel that we could see the Young Bucks defeat Sting and Darby Allin for those AEW tag titles. It's only fitting. I kind of wish they weren't wrestling for the tag titles for the simple fact it'd be cool if Sting won his last match. That would be cool, but if it ends with Darby and Sting dropping the titles to the Young Bucks, who are already on this EVP trip that they're just egomaniacs and everything, then that goes with it. That's cool. And then that can set up them and FTR, down the line. And then, of course, you got these young tag teams that are coming up. You got the return of Private Party, Top Flight, they're back. We could do that thing, but looking forward to that match next week. Sting and Darby Allin versus Ricky Starks and Big Bill. That should be pretty fun. It may not be what most fans want as far as the technical masterpiece, but again, this is entertainment. This is wrestling. It should be entertaining and fun and just a good time and everything. And nowadays, that's what we kind of need in light of all the crazy, wacky news that we've received regarding pro wrestling the last week or so. Next, Deonna Purrazzo, after she defeats Ty Valkyrie, which, man, that submission hold that she executed, that she had on Ty Valkyrie, oh my goodness, man. Go out of your way and check out that match and just that ending and that finisher, man. That was insane. Man, that was wild. That was a wild finisher. But man, check it out. So after the match, actually, let me backtrack. So you had a video package that aired, and Deonna Purrazzo, she explains the tattoos of her, like it was sisterhood, it was a bond, a bond between us. It symbolized us going after our goals and our dreams, and then somewhere that separated. And I really like that small detail of what binds them together. This tattoo that they had, these matching tattoos, and it's like, man, that's some really good creative stuff to execute. I like it. It's fun. It's entertaining. And beyond that, man, it's good storytelling. That little detail adds so much to why they're feuding, why they don't get along now. How far they've separated, from that moment that they had those matching tattoos. And that's some really good storytelling. I know people like, oh, they don't have good stories. They don't do anything with the women. They've been adding a lot of story elements to the women, men, like just in AEW in general. And it's a lot of good structure and cohesiveness. And I really like this. Man, I don't know where this is going to go. I really, is Toni Storm going to retain the tag team title, the AEW women's title, or is Deonna Purrazzo going to upset and become the new AEW women's champion? That's going to be interesting. This, like I said, this match, man, go check this match out. I wouldn't say it's the Deonna Purrazzo Ty Valkyrie match I wouldn't say you can compare it to their matches in TNA. It's just different, different promotions, different, target and everything. It's just really different. But it added on to that quality of what they've done prior to that. But man, one of the craziest thing that happened during that match, or one of the crazy things that Toni Storm said, she gets Deonna Purrazzo knocks Ty Valkyrie into Toni Storm, and Toni Storm's like, oh my God, someone just pissed in my seat. And it's like, oh my God, like the things that Toni Storm is saying in these promos at ringside on commentary, this is so damn entertaining. Who would have thought Toni Storm, when she debuted in 2022, that she had this character? it's so wild and just interesting, the outcast, and just to see where she's at, and just this, she's tapped into something that's so damn good, and it's so fun, and honestly, it adds to the many wrestlers who AEW have that can get on commentary and just entertain you by just talking. And that's a really cool treasure that AEW has. And man, I'm looking forward to that match, Deonna Purrazzo versus Taya Valkyrie. Like I said, I don't know where that goes. And again, Tony Khan's major announcement, does it tie into Mercedes Moné and how she's going to be, how she would be introduced and that whole thing. So it's just a lot of good intrigue. Like, is she going to win? Is she going to retain? Does this, go with Mercedes, and how? So it's good um, intrigue. Sometimes there could be bad intrigue where it's just like, oh man, where's this gonna go? Like disenchanting. There we go. Disenchanting intrigue. Like, I don't like this. Like, it's like, you had that. Um, outside of that, I do gotta say one thing that really, actually two things. The acclaimed, the scissor, was it scissor bang bang, or the scissor bang bang gang? They came out, they did, their thing. For me, it was like, okay, you come out, but like, it really didn't do anything. Like, they could have done a video package for that. And again, those are one of the things that AEW can improve on. Like, hey, sometimes you don't need to bring them out in the crowd. Like, that segment could have been on Rampage. Like, that would have been pretty cool. But for a Dynamite, and it kind of took away from the Ty Valkyrie, Deonna Purrazzo match that happened right after, and it was just like, this really didn't need to happen. It's cool to see him and everything, and of course, everyone was just like, we know this is eventually going to lead to a split and then a unification match for the trios and the ROH six-man tag. Like, we know this is going to lead to a unification, so it is what it is. Then the other thing, and I tweeted this, and it's no hate or anything. It just feels like the time for Chris Jericho to move on for AEW is like getting closer. Um, and by that, I mean it. When he started in AEW 2019 to like 2021, anytime he was on screen, it just added. It's like, okay, it's adding something to the storyline, the wrestlers, the television product, and everything. His theme song, everyone's singing it and everything. Fast forward 2023, it just feels like it's what Chris Jericho, the character, is presenting, doesn't match what AEW is doing and where it's going. It's almost, honestly, I do have to say it. It does feel like Chris Jericho is outdated in AEW. Like, he doesn't fit AEW anymore. Whether he stays or not, but he doesn't fit. Maybe they could put him as a manager or something like that, but him as a wrestler, like, it doesn't fit with what they're doing and where they're going and just the stories that are telling. It doesn't mesh. There's no mesh. And this match, it just really didn't do anything. I mean, there was a nasty spot where there was like was it a suplex power bomb on the turnbuckle? It looked like he hurt himself, and it was just like, ooh. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like Chris Jericho fits anymore in AEW. Maybe Tony Khan sees it. Maybe they don't. It's not a bad thing. Honestly, I see where he's at now. He actually fits more TNA Impact now than AEW. It's just, again, it's like you have all these pieces that people are behind, and it's not the AEW that existed in 2019, 2020, and halfway through 2021. It's not that AEW anymore, and it's a different AEW. It's just like his character, his presentation, his matches, like, it just doesn't fit with AEW anymore. So we'll see where it goes. Also, man, hopefully Wardlow isn't hurt during his match with Commander. He like tweaked his knee, and he like the powerbomb. Like, I remember watching him do the execute. He had Commander up, and then he just dropped him real quick. Usually it goes like this and dropped him. He just couldn't do it. And he dropped it. It was like, ooh. So hopefully it isn't anything major. Man, there is a serious injury bug in the world of professional wrestling. Hopefully it's nothing major or anything like that. So you had that. You had a cool interaction between the Young Bucks and Darby Allin. Young Bucks are telling Darby, why are you letting a 65-year-old take more money from you? You've been ghosting our text messages. What's up with that? And mind you, he's been interviewed by Renee Paquette, and they're interrupting. They have their headsets on, and like, yeah, what are you doing? Like, I like this heel version of the Young Bucks. This is really cool. And Darby responds, the only thing that's on my mind is the AEW tag team titles. So that was it. Then, of course, you had RVD and Swerve Strickland. RVD was Swerve Strickland's opponent, and Hangman Page came out on the screen. He's like, you know what? You didn't read the technicalities. It was a match, and it does say it on the graphic. Swerve Strickland will choose Hangman Page's opponent and match, and vice versa. I was like, oh man, how did I not catch that? That was really cool. This was a decent match, hard hitting and everything. You had Brian Cage try to come in and knock RVD off the top rope, and then Hook came down and beat him up, and you had Samoa Joe cheering for Hook to get Brian Cage out because RVD was someone that Samoa Joe was cheering to beat Swerve Strickland. So it was like, it was happening, I wouldn't say fast, but it was just so fluid. It was like, if you just, oh man, this is cool, Hook, this is. If you didn't pay attention, you're like, wait a minute, Samoa Joe's cheering for Hook? Like, okay. So you had that. Then you have Swerve and Hangman Page after the match. They're jaw jacking, and next week we're getting Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page next week on Dynamite. The last match of this trilogy, that should be fun. Again, next week is the Tony Khan's big announcement. So we kind of know, the rumors are going to speculate. Hey, is it Okada? Is it Mercedes Moné? Is it Forbidden Door? Is it the special? Is it a special venue? The Dynamite after Revolution. Is it Boston? Those type of questions and rumors and speculations are probably going to run rampant. But, it is what it is. So, we'll see what go from there. But overall, man, like I said, this was a solid Dynamite, or it was a good and decent Dynamite. Just the Jericho match and the Acclaim Bullet Club, segment, like, just outside of those two things, man, this was a dope AEW Dynamite. But just that Chris Jericho Kyle Fletcher match, and that's another thing that maybe I've noticed and you guys have noticed. Comment below. It just seems like in the last year and a half, like Chris Jericho's matches, like it like hit, for some reason, like there could be momentum, and then as soon as his matches start and like afterwards, it's like the momentum like slows down and like at a halt. And then the matches afterward and the segments afterward got to get the crowd into it. So that's a repetitive pattern that I've seen in the last year, that like, Chris Jericho's matches, like it just stops the momentum of whatever pay-per-view, Dynamite, Rampage, like it just halts it. And it's just like, and then the crowd got to get into it. You saw it at Full Gear. It's just something ain't clicking with Chris Jericho, his character and his presentation, and where AEW is now. It just ain't clicking. In other news, AEW, their YouTube channel they passed 4 million subscribers. Congratulations. That is insane. And of course, something for you guys to think about. AEW averages 800,000 viewers for Collision, or Dynamite for Collision, around 300,000 viewers. Same thing for Rampage. But they have 4 million viewers, 4 million subscribers on YouTube. I'm just going to leave that there so you guys can put wait a minute. It's not just ratings, folks. It's not just ratings. Outside of that, last but not least, the AEW rankings are out. They announced it during the telecast that the AEW rankings would be released after the show. Tony Khan tweeted it, and This is actually pretty interesting. It's you can go to Tony Khan's Twitter account. It'll be on there. It should be on AEW's Facebook page and um, Instagram page, so it should be on there. But they have all the men's champions: Samoa Joe, Christian Cage, Orange Cassidy, and Eddie Kingston on one side, and then they have the contenders. So there, I didn't see any explanation or like, okay, is the Swerve Strickland number one contender for the AEW title? Is Hangman Page the number two contender for the TNT title? Is Adam Copeland, you know, the number one contender for the international title? And is John Moxley the number one contender for the Continental Crown Championship? That's interesting to say. And then you go to the women's champions contenders. You got Toni Storm and Julia Hart. So you got Deonna Purrazzo, Thunder Rosa, Hikaru Shida, Sky Blue, and Mariah May. Pretty cool. All of them have had recent victories, accumulated a lot of victories. Then you have the tag team champions, Ricky Starks and Big Bill. So you got Sting and Darby as the number one contenders. Then you had John Silver and Alex Reynolds, number two. Then you have Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli. Number four, you have Private Party. And number five, you have Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta. For the trios, champions, the Acclaimed, the number one contenders, and okay, this is interesting because the number one contenders are Bullet Club Gold, who are the ROH six-man tag title. So again, it's obvious that you can see that there's going to be some turn or swerve or that's going to lead to a match between the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn versus the Bullet Club Gold and some type of unification. The second contenders are the Hardys and Mark Briscoe. The third contenders are the Dark Order. Fourth contenders are FTR and Daniel Garcia. And number five is the House of Black. So those are the AEW rankings. I have no complaints so far. Again, they just released it. For me, I would like some clarification as far as the men's championship contenders. So, explain that. But other than that, this was a fun AEW Dynamite, man. I loved it, except for the Jericho Fletcher match and the Bullet Club Gold Acclaim, Scissor Gang, Bang Bang thing. But this was a solid show. It led to a lot of things going into next week. And again, Tony Khan's big announcement. What is that? So we'll see where that goes. But folks, that was my review for AEW Dynamite. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notifications so that you're notified when the City of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180 on all social media platforms. Like I said, if you haven't watched this episode, this is a fun episode to watch. You might want to skip through the Jericho Fletcher match, and that's not an indictment on Kyle Fletcher. He's a dope wrestler, but Chris Jericho is just something ain't clicking with him in AEW. And the Scissor Bang Bang Gang segment, really, that could have been on Rampage or a video package. It just really didn't do anything. But other than that, this was a fun episode. And looking forward to Rampage. Looking forward to SmackDown as well. Collision. What other things we have going on? I know there's a few other shows. I know MLW got something coming on. And then Impact, of course, tomorrow and everything. So looking forward to all that. So with that, folks, enjoy professional wrestling. Don't take it too serious because there's a lot of things going on in the world, and just allow it to be escapism. And let's see what else happens in the world of professional wrestling. Again, like I always say, there is never a dull moment in the world of professional wrestling. With that, folks,